Good morning, good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to part 3 of a special mini series, Let's Build Integrations HubSpot to Shopify with Stefan. Welcome back, man. How you doing?
Thank you very much for having me, Chris. Much appreciated. Volume number 3. One more to go.
Yeah, one more to go. And last week, the reason we're doing this is last week, the official sunset of the legacy HubSpot to Shopify app happened on Thursday. And from there, you have until May 22nd before the sync stops completely. And last time we talked about deals versus orders. So there's really no way that you're not going to be impacted by this change. So I know a lot of people have been holding off on it because it is an impactful change. But I also, this is not one of those just no longer supporting it anymore situations, but you can keep using it. You just can't call help desk. Like the sync is ending. So if you don't migrate to the new app or what we're going to talk about today, build a custom version of that integration, you're no longer going to be able to see data coming in from Shopify. In part 1, we talked about, deciding on the roles first of Shopify and HubSpot and how they work together to support your business strategy. Makes all these other conversations a lot easier if you do that first. And today we're going to talk about native versus custom. Before we dive into that, since we're in this, I have to imagine there's some people out there maybe freaking out a little bit. If they've waited this long to deal with this issue, what is some quick steps that they could take, even if it's just like take some deep breaths, like calm down, like go look at the how-to on how to migrate. What is your best advice to anybody in this position?
I think step number 1, take a look at your calendar in the next 3 days, cancel all the meetings and just focus on this. I would say number 1 tip. No, jokes aside, look, it's always a task to do all of these things, and it's definitely not easy. None of the migrations, whether that's migrating from Zoom to Google Meets, which seems quite simple, it's never easy on that side of things. If you got yourself in the position that you're 3 days away from this sunsetting, I would say the most important thing is the workflows. Don't worry about reports. Don't worry about dashboards. You can build those later. I think your management can hold off a couple of days, until you get the automations ready. Automations are the crucial one because data is going to start flowing into different objects, into different properties, and you need to migrate all of those workflows that the customers don't feel any impact. And that's the most important impact when we are coming to a close deadline, that customers should not feel it. If you're feeling it a little bit internally, look, that's something you'll just have to go over in the post migration, post deadline period. So I would say number 1 thing, start today, get data sync in order, see where the data is all flowing, and go workflow by workflow in order to migrate it. I think, in reality, small businesses will not have more than maybe 20 workflows, and that's kind of at the max. Sending out, you're going to have some like welcome sequence, and then you're potentially going to have some abandoned checkouts, which quite easily can be migrated if you know your way around. For any other, property updating across objects and any internal side of things, that can hold off. Don't worry about it straight away. Think about how we call them external. So we in Longcom, we always speak about external and internal automations. External automations is everything customer facing. Internal is property updates, internal email notifications, anything of that sort that does not impact anyone outside of the organization. So by that terminology, first fix the external automations, data sync, external automations, check that everything's working and flowing in nicely. And then off the back of that, I would say start correcting those reports, build dashboards, and so on. So that's my kind of 3-step, I would say, guide. Look at the pre-deadline and post-deadline. Pre-deadline, sort out the sync and workflows. Post-deadline, everything else.
Yeah, so it sounds like those 2 use cases you described, likely the most common, where after an order comes in, there's going to be some emails going out. And if you're managing that part in HubSpot, your workflows are currently based on deals, and they need to be based on orders moving forward. I've heard some success with some of the migration tool, and that's where like the less custom properties you have, the less customization you have, you might have some really easy success in going through the steps that HubSpot takes you through. So I guarantee there's some people out there that are like dreading this situation where if you just take the steps you need to take, it could happen very easily for you to continue to get those communications going. But also I hear like abandoned cart communications, right? Those were a deal stage in that pipeline, most likely, and now they're going to be off of the cart object, orders and carts working together, basically. Is that the fair kind of breakdown on what you just shared? Focus on
I
those
would say so.
activities.
If there is no crazy customization, you described it perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And if not, like, I guess get ready to start sending those emails manually if you still want, because somebody either internally or externally is going to feel this if you don't make this change. So definitely, I mean, I don't know that you're joking at all. Where if you're responsible for this activity and you haven't touched it yet, clear the schedule until it gets done. This is a super impactful thing if Shopify commerce is important to your business, and running emails and communications from HubSpot is also important to your business. So there, we got that out of the way. I'm not sure who this next part's for. It's just a conversation that we need to talk about because often people will jump in. We'll feel rushed. I mean, it's so easy to go over to the marketplace and just click the install button and have it, start going through the steps and until you hit that wall with a native app that doesn't give you the customization and doesn't give you that one more property that you need to come over from Shopify, or you need to do some stuff. So let's take it from the beginning, because I do think there's a conversation here. Like, do you need all those little bitty properties everywhere that you're relying on right now? So maybe start from what can the native integration do for us? Is that a fair place to start?
Yeah, I think so. I think, every time that we talk to an integration, Shopify or Aircall as a calling system or NetSuite or anything of that sort, we always talk about what you really need to get out of it. And I think the outcome is the key to know at the beginning of what are we trying to get out of the integration. Native integrations in HubSpot, majority of them are data syncs. So what does that mean? It just syncs the data. It's not definitely just, because I think some of these native integrations can work great for some of the customers because it's just syncing the data between two systems. You have separate teams and separate two systems still seeing each other's, and what, I don't know, the delivery team is doing, the marketing team can basically use off the back of that data. I'm also a big believer that a CRM should be a data lake, especially HubSpot, because it's so customizable in number of properties that you can add. So my suggestion is always with integrations, get all the data from different platforms into HubSpot, and then from there you will be able to use it in automations, reporting, or anything of that sort. So, but again, it's only a data sync. It just syncs the data. And sometimes when we talk about integrations, you would think that it's much more than that. You would think that it has some functionality behind it, that it's notifying people when doing certain things, that is having custom mappings on a ridiculous level, that because in reality, in a data sync, you really have to match the data between those drop down values, and that's a huge minus of those native integrations, that the data has to exactly match. Some cases, okay, if you're syncing the deal pipeline stages, you can map this to that one, but If it's a custom dropdown, you won't be able to do that in majority of native integration. So that's a minus. Data cleaning is another thing, like the amount of time that we've installed a native integration and you had this failing and excluded was crazy, but also positive in a way, because excluded because email address is not existent in another system was great, because we could have reported back, there's 50 contacts that you need to clean up and get their email addresses, and everything is perfect. Another thing that native integration has is listening to the changes. You will have that kind of rolling, listening to the changes from the other system, and straight away pushes the data. But then again, we can't really control that. That's how HubSpot has built it. So, custom integrations that use webhooks are much better, in my opinion, because you can really control what type of a payload is going to the other system, what is happening off the back of that, what is really that trigger, in the API that is sending the data over. So native, I like it, but for me, a proper integration is something that has a functionality also behind it. One good native integration that I really like is, going off topic now with Shopify, is HubSpot and Aircall, because you can use Aircall SMS and MMS in workflows. That's a proper integration for me, because you can build much more than a data sync side of things. So they're getting somewhere with that. But the crown on the top of the jewel is definitely a custom integration, especially if they use Operations Hub Professional, because you can code custom actions in Node.js and Python. Absolutely amazing. Okay, you need to have coding knowledge, so there is a blocker. You need to go to consultancies developers that are going to build that for you. But we've done personally wonders with those custom integrations, like some of the systems that didn't have APIs. So we connected straight away into the database via the Node.js, right from the Operations Hub. Some customers that don't want to pay for Operations Hub Pro, we would build a piece of code and put it on AWS, and that's where we can really get the mapping. That's where we can really clean the data from one system into the other, putting some validations. That's where we can go around the problem of HubSpot using email as a deduplicator field. So we can change those email addresses in the custom integration, and we can build out more and more functionality. Yes, the minus is, like with every custom integration, we have to order a maintenance package, which is like a minimum of $50. Sometimes it can go out to $500, $600 a month. But with custom integration, you're really getting the grasp of that data. And even native integrations are not perfect. All of a sudden, you're going to think, okay, here's the mapping of all the things that I have to map between HubSpot and the other system. And then all of a sudden, oh, I can't find the field from the other system. Where is it? What's going on? Oh, it's a special type of a field that HubSpot doesn't use in their integration native one, right? So you come to these blockers just with experience more than anything. It's an odd then conversation with the customer saying, yeah, sorry, I told you that we can do it, but there's this 2% that we can't do, or 5 or 10%. So those are the differences. But I said a lot here. I would say native, if you really need something basic and just the data flowing between the two systems. If you want to get more out of the two systems talking to each other, then go custom. But look, native, we quote very low because it's quite easy setup, because HubSpot has given us the interface to set up the two. Custom, my developers are rolling up their sleeves and started typing, so that's the difference, of course, then in the price. But
I
the
think
outcome is
I think one of the things I'm hearing is, because there's some elements that I'll bring up where it's not even necessarily basic. It's just confirm your use case, right? Like if you can, like just like anything else in HubSpot, what you don't want to do is assume that because this thing worked like this over here, that this version of that thing is going to work the same way, right? You mentioned Aircall, right? There's some really beefy, like native apps available. And that's where, so data syncing, one of the functions we're talking about, there's data transformation, there's doing things with the data on the way there. There's being able to match, not have to go like with like, lots of ways in terms of functionality. But when you can get away with the native, right, now your team is empowered to manage it effectively. And that's right. I love the conversations where you can kind of talk them down from the customization that they think they need, right? Because at the end of the day, this is where the roles conversation, like, what do we need HubSpot to do? And if all we need to do is just communicate with people, then we don't necessarily need the inventory data, coming over into HubSpot, unless our internal team needs to know what that is, right? So just getting clear on the use case and getting clear on what the integration can do for you, because you mentioned that the dynamic syncing, right? Where we don't have any control over it, but when HubSpot's always listening and it's built in, when you build custom and you use, let's say, an iPaaS or other systems to support that, that can get super costly, right? The ability to be always on dynamically listening for changes instead of what you'll often see is like check every 5 minutes, check every 10 minutes, right? And then no matter how long that is, somebody's waiting over here saying, why isn't it happening automatically, right? So that's where, like, again, confirming on what you actually need as a business instead of just trying to plug and play, moving down the path and then realizing like the 2 or 5% is either a deal breaker, right? And you cannot live without it because your volume is so high and like for whatever reason, or you can get to that point that might highlight a spot, say, oh, that 2% is maybe like once a month, right? So maybe we have, Stefan on the team who manages that. That's like a whole separate business unit that can just be handled manually. We don't need to like 10x the cost of the integration just to support this one thing, which I see it happen in CPQ like implementations all the time, because we think we need a blank slate to start from for everything, and then we sell like 10 products. So get clear on that, on what you actually need for your business, and then how the native integration can or cannot serve that. Like all the information is there for the most part. And that's where, even if it's just, an hour or two with somebody like Stefan and his team to help you walk through and confirm that it can do it, like is an amazing investment to make, right? Because you don't want to accidentally think either like, oh, it's not going to work for me, and now I'm going to go out and spend a bunch of time when really we just didn't read it right. But so that's native. Obviously, you mentioned a lot of functionality options related to custom. We've talked about the dynamic or static kind of syncing situations, webhooks. Let's talk about the options and maybe relate to some of the use cases that take you into like, lighter custom integrations versus like really the deeply customized stuff.
I think the tricky thing with e-commerce integrations, whether that's Shopify, WooCommerce, or any other, is that e-commerce these days is, in my opinion, one of the most needs to be reactive industries. By that I mean that you need, that the shoppers are very impatient. They want to get to their purchase, just in a couple of clicks. I mean, the success of Amazon is what, buying 3 clicks or something like that, so or 4 clicks, whatever it is these days. And you need to keep that. So you have to think, how reactive are you? I would say this is a rule. This is, I wouldn't say, very concrete rule, very defined, but the lower your average order value is, the more reactive you have to be. Because if somebody's buying a bracelet for $10, there is a lot of competition out there for that price tag and for those people to buy it. So you really have to capture that customer. While if somebody's buying a piece of furniture for $5,000, that's a much longer life cycle of that purchase, and they need to have the 5,000. They're going to look for payments, repayment plans, and so on and so on. So that's one thing that you have to think about. And then, the volume that you're receiving, because, are you really going to wait for the API to run every 10 minutes if you're getting 10,000 orders a day? I don't think so. But if you get 100 orders, yeah, not a problem, right? So a big difference in that. The volume is a big thing. For me, the solution, I mean, the best one is webhooks, and that's just a fact, right? So as soon as something happens in another platform, it gets you the payload, and then you're able to manipulate it and send it to another URL to kind of manipulate on and handle on that side of things. So it really depends. I'm quite, I can't give you a defined answer here. I'm going to go quite generalistic, kind of politician style. It's what you need and how you need to do it and so on. But majority of customers will start native. After they start native, then they're going to say, okay, this is not meeting our needs. Let's go custom. And then they're going to go custom in the API side of things and running every 10 minutes. Oh, this is not good enough. Let's go webhooks. And in that period, they've spent 2 times more than they should have at the beginning by starting just on the webhook side of things. But that's just how it is. And I think all of us know that. And a lot of, we don't build websites, but when we work with web developers, they always tell us, yeah, the customers want, increments of changes or one big website, and then they're missing out a couple of things because the budget is not meeting them. But in the long run, they're going to be spending more money than building it correctly from the beginning. And same applies with the integrations.
Right. So reactive also sounds like maybe responsiveness, understanding how fast you need to react and respond is an important thing to take into account. So you mentioned, take us through that journey that you just described. What is the reason, or are there any specific use cases that you see where it's all right, we've been using the native and now it's no longer enough?
Yeah, functionality is number one thing I think comes there. Functionality and data problems as well. Now when I think on it, so touch on the data problems first is custom mappings, and they're we don't want HubSpot exactly to replicate what's there in Shopify, but we want it to a certain extent. So we want these 3 stages to be merged in one in HubSpot, because we don't care about going into that depth, because HubSpot is only being looked at by the marketing or whatever team, right, or CRM team, while Shopify is looked by our e-commerce managers and production and so on. So that's number one case when you need to really do something custom when it comes to data, and data cleanliness is a big thing, but we want the SKU codes to be displayed in that way in HubSpot plus this abbreviation, then you add these 2 things together and so on. So that's number one thing, is that customization and data. And second is functionality. Data sync. What do you get? Just data flowing between the 2. You have, then you have to build more internally notifications when a certain thing happens. What if the data is not clean enough? All of that, we do that in a custom code or iPaaS. We can have another session on whether to go iPaaS or whether to go custom code on that side of things. We do both. I don't have personally a preference, but I think that, again, native is the least customized, then iPaaS, then custom integration, because custom integration is really a coded integration based on your scope, your needs, and best practices. So yeah, there is.
That reminds me of something that keeps coming up, where often with the more popular or more prevalent integration situations, let's say it's clear that the native is not going to be enough. You go look at ways, you go search for ways to solve this pain, and you will often find pre-built solutions from iPaaS providers and the like. And what I'm seeing there, and something I just want to warn people about, it's very similar to the HubSpot app marketplace, where you can tell when somebody has built for HubSpot and somebody has not, right? And we're also hearing this from some iPaaS providers, where one of their biggest challenges right now is that they're getting a lot of HubSpot inbound requests to hook HubSpot up to other systems, but nobody on the team has a lot of HubSpot knowledge, right? So that's always my caution. If you find a pre-built, connector or whatever out there, again, the value of having it be pre-built is usually documentation is available. It will tell you exactly what you can do with it. But one of the most common things I see, which won't help you for this specific situation that we're talking about, is that you will see it built for the HubSpot of 5 years ago, right? Where it's just contacts, companies, and deals, especially in these commerce situations, because we just push everything over in the commerce and all we care about is marketing. What are some outside of like object and mapping setup? Is there anything else to look for? Let's say you found a pre-built solution. How do you vet pre-built solutions or like, connectors that are available out in the market?
I'm very. I don't know. I don't know what to say here. Am I going to be polite or am I going to be honest?
You're gonna be honest. You're gonna be
I'm
honest,
going to be honest. Yeah, I am going to be honest. We don't use much of app marketplace stuff
right?
apart from your classic, Google Meets and Zooms and Gmails and so on. I find that they just rolled out the new Monday.com. I don't know if you saw that, right? Integration, which allows you to sync items. Awesome. And we were on a call with a customer, and they're like, I saw this, and I was like, first a little bit embarrassed because I didn't read the product updates, from the last 2 days because I was busy. And then I was like, okay, great. And I saw beta, straight away a warning, right? And try to sync hours because we use Monday.com for our project management. It didn't work. Just like said, authorization issue, you don't have a Monday.com account or something like that. I'm like, yeah, okay, we don't have it then. Fine. But I don't tend to use it. I mean, there is one reason that I'm big for customization. I think businesses these days, doesn't matter small or big, need levels of customizations because customization also in a way is a personalization. So if we in marketing talk so much about more personalization, more and more AI is going to help us personalize, agents are going to help us give this great experience and have all of that. So why are we not looking at the integrations when the data needs to be flowing, which is the foundation of your AI, which is a foundation of personalization? If you don't have first names, how are you going to send out all of those emails? So that's why I'm big on custom. And second, again, being honest, brings us revenue, so the more custom integrations that we do together with HubSpot, the better overall for Longcom as a company is. And we're really seeing a massive influx in the last 6 months of the request to integrate with HubSpot. Yes, we started pushing it more definitely on our marketing channels and in sales, but I would say that businesses do need it. And app marketplace is great for your simple ones. And I mean, there's a ton of use case. Vimeo integration, a customer wanted to do it last week, was not very happy with the outcome, said, okay, we're
Right.
going to use HubSpot and whatever they kind of but then they have to migrate all of their Vimeo files and videos into HubSpot now, so it's again a job. So I would
Yeah.
say we don't use it personally that much, although some of the basic ones we definitely do.
Right. Yep. So let's go outside of the marketplace because there's a lot of like iPaaS providers and solutions providers, probably Shopify partners out there that have pre-built things, to solve for this integration. When we're outside in the market, because I have a feeling it's gonna be very similar. But just like when you see, how should people think about? Because I think this is the first step. Like I Google search Shopify integration, like customizable, whatever words I want to use. And I see pre-built solution like HubSpot, Shopify, and then I go to that site and then I click on their HubSpot Shopify page and it looks really cool. What questions should we be asking of those providers if we're trying to avoid a custom route, right? At this point, even though those are just kind of like a stepping stone to like customize integrations, but there's lots of things to consider on which integration partner you work with at that point, right? Like pre-built, again, if we're talking about it's pre-built, but all it is contacts, companies, and deals, like the pre-built's not going to do much for you, right? So as they see that page and they go through, like obviously it's a marketing page, like what questions should they be asking, like if they were to reach out and want to go that route?
Mm-hmm. All of those are pre-built in blueprints And that's a big difference than pre-built-in integrations. Because you can't tell me that a business selling cars and a business selling mugs have the same needs in integration. Every business is unique by its unique processes, unique ways of doing stuff, right? So pre-built-in blueprints. I would I would go same as every time that I'm building a workflow. What are the options that I have? Do I have a branch? Do I have a data mapping field? Do I have, I don't know, data cleaning? Do I have some AI functionality and all of that? So those are the questions that I'll be asking, more functionality. And then I would be mapping out. But again, if you're going shopping without the desired outcome and what you want to get out of it, you're going to fail straight away. So write out the list of things that you want to do from that integration, and then go shopping, and then go find whether native iPaaS or custom or really custom coded. Okay, so that those are the things. Cost is a big thing. Is the cost monthly fee? Is the cost per trigger, or is it both? How does that fit in with the budget? What is the support that is being offered to me? Yeah, that's another big thing, another big topic. Because if you're going to choose a small development team like ours, just put it out there, we're going to have a very responsiveness because we don't tackle hundreds of clients like maybe Zapier. Yeah. So what's the level of support that you're going to get when something fails? And things are going to fail. So who's going to build that integration when it fails, that somebody gets an email, hey, something has failed, you need to check this out? Who's going to be checking and managing that integration? You need to think all of these questions. So it's a lot. And in 3 days until the deadline, you won't be able to do that. So go native first, then think about to map out the whole integration out on that. So
Yeah.
I would say these are some of the key points that I would be looking.
Yeah. If anything, the native will help you figure out right away, like what you're going to need customization for. But I think that's a good point, especially on that support issue, right? And this is one of the values, like when you can get stuff done, inside of HubSpot and, with a HubSpot partner, the support in that situation is usually infinitely better than when you have to rely on more third parties. Because an interesting thing there is that support, sometimes if it is an iPaaS, for example, you are introducing a third system that needs to be managed and maintained, right? Sometimes you're paying the third party to do that. But if you think that pre-built, like you say, means like, oh, okay, I can just add this in and I'm going to be able to go in there and use it. And it's going to be like HubSpot, like, especially if you come from the HubSpot world. Like, I have yet to see another situation outside of HubSpot that is managed and maintained as easily, like once you configure everything. And that's where I'm seeing a big disconnect. Like, it's another system you have to learn outside of, in this case, Shopify, outside of HubSpot. It's a third system, right? And either you're paying somebody else to maintain it, or somebody's got to own the success of that new piece, right? But it sounds like, as you're describing, and this is kind of one of the, I think, secret sauces of Ops Hub that most people don't know about. When you talk about custom coding, and this depends on the business environment and the stack as a whole. When you're integrating systems, in the best of situations, like we've got Cloud API from Shopify, Cloud API from HubSpot. Like, are you setting up custom code situations where there is no third system? Everything's in either HubSpot or Shopify to be managed?
Yes and no. I mean, it really depends. My preference always is, and what I always say to the customers, can you please take Operations Hub Pro? Because then we can manage the code within HubSpot. And the deployment of that code is easy. Very easy, because you just set a trigger, or you can receive webhooks, you can send webhooks, and you do all sorts. And that's my preference. Sometimes that doesn't work. There is a cost of Operations Hub Pro that they have to pay on a monthly basis just for the integration to be running, and they don't have a lot of duplicates and no data quality side of things needed, or formatting of the data and so on. So then we would go custom in that case. But I'm 100% certain that even somebody with no coding knowledge and a good prompt can build that integration if it's very simple. And I'll give you a tip on how I would do it. So the first thing, get the link of custom actions description from HubSpot, go into ChatGPT, get their model for advanced reasoning, or I think they got a new model for coding and writing. Say, read this link. Then read the API link of Shopify. Then read the HubSpot documentation of contacts or deals or anything that you're syncing. First, load the data and then ask you the question. I'm coding in custom actions in a workflow. This is my trigger. Can you build me that the data is being sent from HubSpot to Shopify or received from Shopify and put it into HubSpot? Bam. Code. Put it in, get a deal, test it. Doesn't work, copy and paste the error in. When it fixes the error, copy it in, error fixed. Thank you very much, the error is fixed. That's one thing that people forget in AI, to feedback saying, hey, this is working. They just kind of finish it and answer the next question. No.
Yeah.
You have to say this is working, because that's how AI basically learns. And
All
you can
right,
definitely do it.
we're gonna need a part 5, I think.
Yeah.
Talking about AI enablement. Like, he's right on the money, folks. Like, especially with MCP coming out, and the integrations, like on the other side, not the same as MCP, but like when you can ask, Anthropic and the ask OpenAI actions, when you can integrate with the backend APIs of the LLMs. HubSpot's rebuilding Breeze Copilot. Like, AI is impacting these situations to the point where I believe, like, and this is where I have, 1% of the experience that Stefan has in terms of actually building and managing this stuff. But when you think about the purpose of iPaaS, right? Integration platform as a service. It's built to solve the fact that the systems can't talk to each other by themselves, right? And a lot of that has to do with the complexity of the systems and how they name things versus how HubSpot names things. And right, it just gets messy. So you rely on iPaaS to kind of be the translation tool, the transformation tool, the management tool of all this traffic going back and forth. My personal experience with HubSpot MCP already with Claude is that conversational aspect. Now, I haven't integrated systems, but I don't necessarily need to tell Claude exactly what the name of the property is and of the thing is for me to be able to get what I want done. As AI starts to get involved and it can say, oh, Chris must mean this. And then I'm going to confirm. And I'm like, yep, that's what it's called. That's the internal name, right? I didn't have it on me. I don't know how to ping the API and find stuff, right? That is a massive change to the system that, again, is included in your HubSpot experience right now. And I'm going to put you on the schedule after we close up here for this part 5, because it's a massive change to the integration mindset of how we bring systems together, right, in an effective way while solving for a lot of the problems, that we talk about. Because it could even be like, hey, Claude, audit my HubSpot portal. I want to integrate with Shopify. Like, this is what the native page says. Is that going to work for me? If not, why not?
Yeah.
If so, let's build it. Like, it's not really.
You know what's
Right.
also something what we do is, sorry to jump in there, but export properties. Excel spreadsheet, feed it into AI.
Yes.
There you go. You sort it out. You tell me what I need to do. You learn all the API names, so I don't need to worry about that. So I think
Yep.
it's all about that initial first prompt. If the prompt is, sometimes when it comes to integration, our first prompt is 2 pages long, because I want to feed it. I want to feed it information, because integrations can get complex. I want to get it, I want to explain which version of Node am I using. What do I prefer to use in type of, querying the URL endpoints and so on. I want to get all of this. Am I going to do some logging? Am I going to do some outputting? Am I going to do all of these things? And I think a good prompt can really make a life easier, because the goal is not that you do all the things in like 15 steps. It's the goal to do it in 5 steps. And in order to do that, you need to provide AI a lot of information. So that's why I always saying to my team, like, feed it and tell it when it's good.
Context.
Don't just finish that chat because you're in a rush. Tell it thanks, it's working, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how
Screenshots are your best friend. And surprise, just like when you're asking HubSpot support, screenshots are worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Works the same for AI. So every error, like, yeah, I see a part 5 in our future for sure, because I want to dig into this more. But we could go on all day now that we've brought AI into the picture. So we'll wrap there. I think, like, if I can say for both of us, like, the key here is understand your needs. Like, that's the only way you can figure out which, like, native or custom is right for you. And if you want to take a phased approach, that's fine. I don't necessarily recommend it at the speed that we're traveling right now, because you can get to custom solutions much faster, much more affordably, much more maintainable than ever before. That's why we're here talking about HubSpot as a piece of this equation, right? And then once you get into those higher level, like, deeper customizations, that's where deciding on which system is doing what for you is so important. Or you get mired in these, well, which system should be doing this and this. And that's where you can spend a lot of money real quick, because we only develop a one-way sync, and now all of a sudden we need a two-way sync, and that changes everything. So apparently I could go on for a while with that as well. So I'll just do my best to wrap up here. Appreciate you coming by again, Stefan. Join us for part 4, where we're going to be talking about the actual outcome that everybody wants off of all of this, which is dashboards and reports. How are things going? Are the systems talking to each other? But are customers ordering? Are abandoned carts, are we impacting that with the new marketing campaign that we've set up? Are we getting repeat orders? You know, all that stuff. That's what part 4 is going to be about, which, again, one of the shifts is we got deals, we've got orders, and we've got carts now. What do we have to work with out of the box? What kinds of things do we need to set up? And what might be coming in the future, like line item specific reporting, that might be helping us with understanding our Shopify. So until next time, Stefan, thanks so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.